Hi, my name is Kyle Young, and this is one of our video interviews for the Right to Publish Conference 2018 in Wheaton, Chicago. And we are going to have three amazing editors with us today, Cindy Sproles, Lee Warren, and Randall Payleitner. And they are going to tell you a little bit about themselves and their companies and what they're looking for. And I think the best part is they're going to be telling you how to pitch your book or your project to them during the conference at Right to Publish. And as an author and a literary agent myself, I think the greatest thing about writers' conferences is you get to meet with professionals and you get to not only hear from them, but have them mentor you. And I'll tell you a little tidbit about Cindy. If it wasn't for Cindy, I may not be doing this right now, because Cindy, at a crucial point in my journey in writing, was there to encourage me and really push me to keep moving forward. And so these kind of people, these professionals, can make a great impact, not only in your life, but in your writing career. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Cindy. So Cindy, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company?
I can. Are you saying that we created a monster with you?
That's right, yeah. It's Cindy's fault.
Well, I am Cindy Sproles, and I am with ChristianDevotions.us and also Lighthouse Publishing of the Carolinas. I am the managing editor for Straight Street Books, which is our nonfiction, and also for our devotional, Sunrise Devotionals. So that's what I do with Lighthouse. You wanted to know what we're looking for?
Yes. Well, tell me kind of a little bit about what is a unique thing about you before we go there.
Ask me that question again. What is unique about me? Okay, well, what is unique about me is everything. There, how's that?
There you go.
Now, I have, yes, Kyle reminded me of this. I have recently survived 2 brain surgeries, and I still have a brain, believe it or not. It doesn't always function like it should, but I have one. No, I guess what is really unique about me is that I am truly an encourager. That is kind of my first thing to do with people. I like to see the best part in them, and that's my fun thing. I like to encourage people and see them excel. So when I look at you, it makes me feel really good to see that you've done as well as you have. So yeah, that's unique about me, I guess.
Great. Well, I can attest to that for sure. So people can meet with you to pitch books. They can also meet with you to pitch devotionals, which we'll talk about, but also to be encouraged, which is awesome. So.
Yes.
Lee, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company?
Yeah, thanks for having me, by the way, today. I'm with Electric Moon Publishing. We've been around for about 10 years, and we started out as a royalty publishing house to focus solely on ebooks. And we've kind of morphed and changed a couple of times, and now we're what we call a custom publishing house. And so we're kind of a mix between self-publishing and traditional publishing, in that if you need help with maybe books that you reacquired the rights to and you want to put them back out yourself, we can help you get them up on CreateSpace and various other places if you don't know, if you're not technical, that kind of thing. We also offer the full range of services: copy editing, developmental editing, proofreading, layout, book cover. So if you need help with any of those, we're kind of a la carte. You can kind of pick and choose what you need from us. So that's a little bit about our company. Something that's kind of unique about me is that back in the 80s, I was a heavy metal guy. Had long hair, bleached out tips.
Oh, wow.
And I often say that I had a mullet, but I did not have a mullet. I did not have a mullet.
Think about it the same way again.
I don't know if you can see the picture, but
awesome.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
I'm definitely doing a screen capture of that.
Don't do that.
That's awesome. Great one. And Randall, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your company, and something interesting about yourself?
Sure. So my name's Randall Payleitner. I am the editorial director here at Moody Publishers in Chicago. So we're just about 20 miles east of where the Writers' Conference will be out in Wheaton. So I'm sitting downtown Chicago right now. I've been here with Moody for about 13 years, and I work with both our acquisitions teams and our developmental editorial teams. So both halves of the editorial process. We acquire and publish about 50 to 60 new books a year, primarily nonfiction. I'll get in a little more into that in the subsequent questions, but we've got 5 full-time acquirers and a decent-sized developmental editorial staff to kind of figure out what we should publish and then how to help make it the best stuff it can be. like I like to say, how to close the gap between what a book is and what it could be. So looking at how to partner with our authors and partner with potential authors to figure out what we should publish and how to make it really shine. So and Moody Publishers is part of the Moody Bible Institute. So I'm sitting here on campus of Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, at LaSalle in Chicago. And it's neat to be a part of a company that has a bold vision for going forward, but also has a 130-year history. Moody Publishers started in 1894 and has been publishing Christian books ever since. But a neat part, I guess it's a factoid not about me, although I'll try to think of something interesting to say about myself, but about Moody, founded by D.L. Moody in 1894. The idea was to make inexpensive books for young people and people who were in prison. And so that was kind of in our DNA and in our starting, and we still have both of those at a core of what we do as far as producing resources that help equip the next generation, as well as specifically some products and a lot of ministries involved in prison ministry too, which is pretty neat thing. So that's me, and here I am. I guess the unique thing as it relates to me, as it relates to this conference, is I live just blocks away from where the conference is going to be taking place in Wheaton College. So that is it was a funny thing when I was first contacted about being a part of it. I was like, I don't know, my schedule's pretty busy. And then it's like, oh, that's way closer than going to work. So, okay, sure, let's do it.
That's a good deal, right?
Yeah, not bad.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, since we're talking with you right now, Randall, let's talk about what you're acquiring right now at Moody.
Yeah, great question. So we have primarily nonfiction books, evangelical Christian books for the evangelical reader, as well as kind of those who are open to the worldview of looking at what the Bible has to say about how we should live our lives and what is entailed in that. We have about, again, we're looking for great ideas, but the 5 different streams that I'm a big hand talker, by the way, and that's hard to do on the internet. So it's hard for me to get my hand talking into the screenshot here. But we're looking for marriage and family resources, books that are helping equip people to be better husbands, fathers, moms, wives, and the like. So that's a major stream of what we do. Some of our best-selling books are in that realm. So marriage and family, grandparenting, things like that. That is one of our acquirers is constantly on the lookout for that. Books for church leaders, especially pastors, whether it's in the preaching space or the community care or anything in the space of how to lead in a church context. We're looking for Bible study products, primarily for women and for young people. The idea of how to study God's word better and in a stronger way. So that's a major area of what we're doing these days. Your kind of classic spiritual growth books, Christian living, there's all kinds of synonyms in that space, but the idea of how to help people take that next step in their walk with God, whatever that might be it spiritual disciplines or just trying to figure out what God has for them. So in that space, and then also we do a fair amount of projects with ministry partners, organizational partners who are kind of on some sort of mission, right? People who are looking to better the world in some way. Again, you think anywhere from like orphan care to responsible finance to all kinds of stuff, but people who are on some sort of mission and partnering with those authors who are doing that, and then trying to reach the readers who can and do come alongside them.
Awesome. That's great. Well, that's a lot you're acquiring, of course. And that's,
hey, thanks. Yeah. Well, hey.
And so, yeah, they're great. Well, let's move on to Lee. Lee, what are you acquiring and looking for and would like to see pitches for at this conference?
Yeah, since we're a custom publisher, that means the author will be purchasing our services. And so we do work with authors to really hone their message. And so it's going to run the gamut, really. There's very little genres that we don't publish. I brought a few of examples for you to see.
Great.
We've got the book that we had recently released about depression, and one that helps ministries with their Facebook page. That's always a struggle. How do you connect and stay connected with your audience? We've done a book recently about healthy eating, so we do those. We've even done a children's picture book recently with full illustrations throughout it. And some of our children's authors, I believe, actually have brought their own illustrators, and so that's fine with us as well. So it's not really a genre as much as just making sure that it's a high quality product, and we partner with authors to help them make that.
Okay, good. Great. Well, that's exciting. So hopefully you'll get some good pitches at Right to Publish.
Yeah.
And Cindy, what are you looking for? Now you're looking for both devotions and books. So what are you looking for in both those categories?
I'm looking under the books with Lighthouse, with Straight Street Books, which is our regular line of nonfiction. I'm looking for good, solid Christian living books that equip the Christian life, growth in that personal relationship with God. I'm not looking for any kind of memoirs. For us, that's just kind of a hard sell. But I'm looking for something that will help take those folks that have a relationship, or even maybe they don't have a relationship, that will help take them to introduce them to God or to take them to the next level. I have been looking for some real good, solid writing on that. As far as the devotional side for Sunrise, I keep telling authors all the time, thank Oswald Chambers with my utmost for his highest. And I say that not because I want the older type writing, but because I'm looking for devotions that bring us back to the meat of the scripture, and not just niche books. So there's a reason why books like My Utmost to Its Highest is still there and still selling well, and Streams in the Desert are still selling well, because they address everyone, and they have that good, solid spiritual content to them, and not a forced content. So that's what I'm looking for devotion-wise for books. For ChristianDevotions.us, which is our webpage for the ministry, we are always looking for good, solid devotions. We like to think of ourselves as the beginning. For most writers, we are that foot in the door. So we like to try our best to help make those writers get to the level where that they can be published on the website and have that have us as part of their platform. So we're looking for good devotions where they can just send to ChristianDevotions.us.
Great. Awesome. Well, that'd be wonderful. Lee, let me ask you kind of this next question. And it's going to be a two-parter. I didn't prepare you for this one in the pre-prepare, but I had this. So I want to see if you have any tips or advice for people to making pitches. And the reason being, it is nerve-wracking and scary. Like when people come up to us, and sometimes they forget we're real people. And I say that probably at every conference 10 times. I'm just a real person, just like you. Don't be so nervous. But how can you give some tips for advice for people when they're making pitches? What do you want them to bring, if you want them to bring anything unique? And then one of my favorite questions to ask, which I get a lot of feedback, so I'll ask you to answer this one. When you get through a query letter in an email especially, what's the first thing you look at in a proposal? Because everybody starts at somewhere different. Do you go to platform? Do you start at the beginning and read through? Do you go read the bio? Do you go to the first chapter? Where do you go to when you first open up that book proposal that's been submitted to you electronically?
Good. That's a lot. You're probably going to have to prompt me for that second question. But really, when you do sit down with us, I mean, we're there to meet with you. We're there to help you. And so we don't expect a lot of small talk up front. I mean, you can just get right to your pitch. And for me personally, what I really prefer and really enjoy is when somebody knows their product well enough to tell me what specific genre it is. Because often when they sit down, it takes me 5 minutes or so to pull that out of them before I can start to help them, with a marketing message, or help them understand whether that's a good fit for us or not. So it's just understanding your genre really well, understanding the word count range that most books in your genre are, understanding what point of view, if you're writing fiction, that your genre is typically told in. Just knowing your genre well enough to where we're going to have a conversation about it. Now, if you're not at that point, don't worry. You can still meet with me. I'll be glad to help pick your brain. It's just, I feel like I can offer more if I have a good starting point with you. So that's the first thing. And yeah, I forgot your second question. Oh, the query letter.
Tips or advice for people making pitches? What do you need anything for them to bring you? Anything specific? Are there any special requirements you want to see when you're meeting with somebody?
I know we're all different, right, in what we want to see. I typically don't want to see samples of writing as much as I want to hear your heart for your project. And if you do bring a chapter at the end, I'll definitely take a look at it and give you some feedback on what I think about whether it's a good fit for us or not. I'm just more interested in hearing your heart and about why this book was birthed, how you came to that point, and then seeing how articulate you can be to take the message full circle. Are there any holes in your message? Can I help you fill in some gaps, maybe that kind of thing? So I'm mostly just looking for, your heart. I just want to hear from your heart.
Great. And when you get something electronically submitted, where do you start after the query letter? When you open up the proposal, where do you go?
Yeah, since we're custom publishing, we don't really work for proposals.
Okay.
If it's local, we'll meet with you one-on-one over coffee and just talk about your proposal or your manuscript. If it's on the phone, we'll often just pick up the phone and talk to the author, and again, just kind of hear their heart. And so, we are looking for what I had mentioned previously, kind of an articulate message, one that's consistent with what we publish. Obviously, we publish for the Christian market. We also publish for the general market, as long as it's like PG or less risque than that. And so, just again, knowing that who we are as a publisher and what we publish, and then we kind of help guide from there. And so we're different from a traditional publisher in that sense, and then you won't approach us with a proposal as much as just a kind of a verbal pitch.
Good. Great. Awesome. Randall, same 3 questions for you. I'll give them to you one at a time. So,
all right.
What are some tips and advice you have? I learned my lesson. What are some tips and advice you have for people while they're making pitches?
Great question. First of all, I agree with what Lee said. I think he's spot on. 2 things I'd say are, I'd love to be able to hear your idea pretty succinctly, not so much because we're short on time in the moment, which we may be at a writer's conference, but even more important than that, it's critical for an author, potential author, in my view, to be able to give somebody what they need to know to kind of understand where their book's at in about 10 seconds. Like, not that you need to convince me that the book is the best thing that ever existed or that it must be published. That's not what I'm talking about. But like, what's the idea? And give it to me pretty succinctly. If it needs a lot of qualifiers and a lot of you had to be there type of things, the reality is the book will have to exist without the author attached to it in the world, right? It will have to exist on its Amazon page. It will have to exist on the book table. It will have to exist, at the bookstore or wherever without the author attached to it. So the idea for the book needs to be able to be conveyed pretty succinctly. I understand that doesn't mean I'm not in the fiction publishing game at the moment, so I get that the pitch for the summary of the novel might take longer than that. But in nonfiction world, like, what is this idea and why does the potential reader need it pretty quickly? And I know I'm about to bleed over into the second question too, Kyle, but the second thing is be ready to talk through your table of contents, which is essentially a longer version of the first point. Because in a nonfiction book in particular, you got to be able to tell me where you're going to take me. And that is that's probably the answer to all 3 of the questions, actually. That's the first thing I look at always, is the table of contents. And even I like to say it's an annotated table of contents, like chapter title and a sentence or 2 or 3 about each chapter. Kind of gives me the big picture, 10,000 foot stream of thought for where you are, where you're going to take me, and then where you're going to land the plane for the reader. I think that's really important. We all know that a lot of nonfiction books start strong, but 30 to 60% of the way in, it's kind of hard to know where, even the best ones, even the best ideas, it's hard to know where it's going to land for the reader. And so I love to be able to talk through that with a potential author and then figure out where we should go. Because often the first half of the book is wonderful. And the second half just needed some coaching to kind of get the reader to then apply it to their life, or get the reader to then talk about it with somebody else, or whatever the action is that you're asking the reader to take. We want that to be pretty clear.
That's great. Great advice. Especially, that's really good for any nonfiction, really.
Yeah, I think so.
To talk about like that. Wonderful. Cindy, what about yourself? What do you like to see? Well, let's go tips and advice for people that are making pitches to you.
tips and advice. Oh, you're going to go backwards on me.
Yeah, tips and advice.
Tips and advice for people who are coming to me. I'm kind of a little different than the guys in a way. I don't think that you have to be able to bolt up out of the bed in the middle of the night and spurt out your, pitch to me. I would rather, if you feel uncomfortable with that, because I stutter and stammer around, I would rather you write it out and just read it to me, because then, like Lee and Randall said, at least I'm getting the full idea of what you need. So, rather than spending your time sweating over it, I would rather you write it out and read it to me. And if you're not comfortable with that, of course, the more you know what you're writing, the easier it is for you to say that stuff, especially if you're a new author and this is the first time you're doing that kind of stuff. Then I'm happy with you to be able to read it to me and at least give me a good solid idea without worrying about it. I like to have a one sheet so that I can go along with you. I think just being able to say it like they said, being able to tell us what you need immediately is good. But I do like a one sheet. I like a one sheet. To be able to
good.
take home.
Try to bring a one sheet. And
yeah.
Where do you go when you get an electronic document? Where do you go first?
I go to the first chapter.
First
right off the bat. I do. I go to the first chapter because for me, I want to know that this person can write well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can go back and look at the proposal and see if it really is something that we, can use in our house, that we can work through and work with. So yeah, I look at the first chapter. I like to see how well they write.
Wonderful. Well, great. Well, this has been super informative for me, and I always like to learn these things. I know it will be for some of our authors who are, especially our first-time authors coming to Write to Publish. And I appreciate Cindy and Lee and Randall taking the time to share with all of you out there who are watching this. Hopefully, you'll come up and say hello. I saw your video, and they will say hi back to you. They're not scary people, and they'll be glad to meet you and know that you will watch this video. And so come prepared to your pitches with ideas and get to know them. If you need a little encouragement, definitely get to know Cindy. It's helpful. So guys, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules to do this little interview with us, and we will see you in June at Write to Publish. So thank you all.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Thanks.